All right, good afternoon. I call to order this June 11th, 2019 School Board Workshop for the Powhatan County School Board. Ms. Wilson, if you'll let the minutes reflect that all members of the school board are present this evening. We're joined by Dr. Jones and our newly graduated student liaison, Ms. Jordan Winnell. We offer congratulations to her for only a matter of a few days now, but congratulations for your graduation.
Thank you.
All right, we wish you all the best in the future. Very proud of you. All right, so that takes us to the approval of the draft agenda as presented for the evening. Do any members have changes necessary to the draft agenda? If not, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the draft agenda.
All right, we have a motion to approve the draft agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, please respond with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Takes us to the public comment period for our workshop. This is an opportunity for individuals or groups that wish to address the board to be heard. There's a time limit of 3 minutes per individual and 5 minutes per group with a total time limit of 30 minutes. We would ask that any speakers address the board as a whole, not direct your comments to individual board members. Also, we'd ask that if you're an adult, you identify yourself by name and please provide us with your address. Public comment period is open. Public comment period is open. All right, seeing no movement, I'll bring public comment period to a close. Dr. Jones, I believe we have 2 presentations during the workshop this evening.
We do, Mr. Chairman. First one is a capital projects update. Dr. Tibbs is going to come up and brief the board on work that we're doing at Pocahontas Middle School and also our train performance contract. Dr. Tibbs.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. Real quick, wanted to give you a quick update before we begin our summer season of being incredibly busy and incredibly crazy on these 2 capital projects. The first one is a train performance contract. As you know, we've been working with Train since about February to do some energy performance measures within our school buildings. The first slide gives you an idea as to the building envelope completion, and I've got some pictures to go along with that, as well as the lighting work that's being done, has been done and is currently being done in some of the schools, as well as the major mechanical. If you will recall, the big component of this is some major mechanical equipment replacement at both Pocahontas Elementary and Powhatan Elementary, and we are beginning that work on Monday. As soon as school lets out for students, we're going to begin that work. These first slides, pictures, give you some befores and afters. Not last month, the month before last, I had some pictures in there with some befores and afters. So you can see that it's going from a really dim yellowy light to a very bright light. Overwhelming feedback. Everybody seems to enjoy the new lights and enjoy that they cut on immediately and there's no buzzing, there's no humming and things of that nature. The second slide shows Pocahontas Elementary School cafeteria, which is a very high ceiling cafeteria, and so bringing some new light into that cafeteria really did brighten it up. And then you can see the gym space. This is Pocahontas Elementary School gym. Again, a very high ceiling area, an open ceiling area, so having new LED lights in there has really enhanced the visibility in that space. For the building envelope, what the building envelope measures do is they help to keep air-conditioned and heated air from escaping the building, either through cracks, door seals, or penetrations in the building. And so what you've got is there are 2 slides. The first one is Flat Rock Elementary School, and there you can see one of the train workers doing some door kits, and then also sees some roof foam sprayed along the roof where the ceiling and the roof meet at the metal decking. There's usually some penetrations there that didn't get filled in with foam at the time the building was built, or didn't get filled in with mortar if it was in the block wall, and so they went in and did a lot of spray foam in those areas, and you can see those in the pictures. And this shows Powhatan High School and Pocahontas Elementary School. All of the building envelope has been completed as part of this project, so all of that was completed about a month ago or so. The next item is the one that we are very excited about. It's a Pocahontas Middle School repurpose. This has been on the memories of the board and on the minds of the board, as well as those of us in the staff. If you'll recall, our biggest issue was a roof, and I brought to you a couple of months ago the first round of bids that we had with the roof, and we were rebidding that. So we sent that out to second bid, and it was including only the occupied sections of the building. We did receive 2 proposals back at that time after the second bid was sent out. The contract was awarded ultimately to Roof Systems of Virginia. Roof Systems of Virginia is located here in Richmond, and so they're very local. And we do anticipate them beginning work here very soon. The next slide shows the areas that we are focusing on with this roof project. And on the left side of the slide, I denoted the roof sections that are part of this plan in terms of replacement. What I did put at the bottom of that list are the roof sections. If you notice Area H and Area N, Area H is the old chorus room, which for those of us who have been around or came through that school is the old library from many, many years ago. And also the cafeteria. Those roof sections have given us no problem whatsoever from a leaking standpoint, and so those areas do not need to be totally replaced. They can be reconditioned, and we can get some more life out of those areas. So in order for us to be able to do this roof project within budget, we pulled those 2 sections out because they have not posed us any problems. We're going to recondition them as part of the operating budget. And then on the right side of this slide, it shows you the different areas. What I do want to point out is that Area L and Area, very small, I believe that's K, those 2 areas are not occupied sections, even though they were included in this pictorial. They are not occupied sections, so those areas are not a part of this. But if you'll notice Area M, that is the major area that is a built-up roof, which is comprised of asphalt and rock, kind of cobblestone type of rock. We are experiencing a great deal of roof leakage in that area, and so that was a major section that we wanted to make sure that we did get done as part of this. And it does cover from that area H all the way down to where it meets up with Area L. Okay. And so we will begin this project actually this week. And so on the last slide, it shows some of the renovations, the scope of work that we are planning on at this space. New paint throughout, enhancements to the library for large meeting and community service space, or community space rather, conversion of classrooms to office spaces, complete removal and replacement of all ceiling tiles throughout every occupied section, clean and sanitize all HVAC units and coils in the occupied spaces, removal and replacement of all carpet, adding carpet in classrooms being converted to office spaces, and then some landscape enhancements. Any questions?
Questions from the members for Dr. Tibbs or Dr. Jones? Mrs. Emel.
So what, in your little clouds there, the red print, what does that say? I know it says the area but what does it say underneath those?
The EPDM is a type of roof. An EPDM roof is a rubber roof. A BUR roof, which is what is under Area M, that's what they call a built-up roof. So the EPDM and the built-up roof that is currently in existence will be extracted. That'll be totally removed. Any insulation that is wet will be removed and replaced. And then because of code and because of energy efficiency regulations, there's some adding of insulation that has to be done prior to new EPDM going on top of the roof. So we're going to be replacing everything with an EPDM roof, which is what all the rest of our schools are, with the exception of Powhatan Elementary.
And so it just says the area and what kind of roof it is.
That, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And the square footage, because
And the
that's how
square
they
foot, yeah.
calculate it. Mhm.
And so then down below on the right-hand corner, that's the white part is the other areas of the school that we are not doing.
Yes, ma'am, correct.
Okay. Just wanted to be sure. Oh, now how come yours is so nice? Wow. Yeah. All right, which button did you press? This?
So, Mr. Tibbs, two
Yes, sir.
questions. One is back on the train energy efficiency project we're doing.
Oh, yeah.
Just remind me, we paid about $500,000 to get into that, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And then we're supposed to recoup that with energy savings over the next, how many years?
I don't know the exact number right off the top of my head, but I certainly can get
But
that to
that's-
you.
That's the premise behind that?
Yes, sir. Mhm.
Okay. So we really have two projects that basically are aimed at energy efficiency for us, the train project and then the solar project we're looking at
Exactly.
next.
Yes, sir.
So I think that's good news for taxpayers. It's being good stewards of the county's money. So, you know, I think it's something we certainly can highlight and talk about as we move forward into next year, so.
Right.
And then on the renovation of the middle school, I didn't hear anything about electrical work, so we're okay with electricity, and we're gonna do wireless throughout that new area, so we don't have to worry about it.
Correct. As part of the train project, that building is also receiving new lighting and energy efficient lights as an upgrade. It's included in the train project, and we made sure that was in there. From an electrical standpoint, when we go into the classrooms and we construct partitions, we're going to add some outlets and things of that nature for staff. But all in all, we're in pretty good shape. It's just in those classroom spaces that we'll have to do some addition.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, Mrs.
I do have
Ayers.
just one question. Is Area L, is that the cafeteria area, or is that before the cafeteria area?
Area L. Area L is at the end of C Hall.
Okay,
So if you look at Area M, which is that large gray area,
yes.
Area L is that square behind that.
Okay, is that where the floor slants down to go down to that, it's like an angled floor?
No, that's over in the white section and the D section.
Okay, I'm so confused. You're gonna have to walk me through it someday, because I've
Okay.
been in that school 1,000 times, and I'm just looking at the,
Isn't H
I
the
know.
cafeteria?
H is the cafeteria.
See, way over to the
I get
left?
it, I get it. I
Okay.
know exactly where it is now.
Yeah.
It's
So
fine.
It's one of those
Thank you,
two
Ms.
new-
Email.
New additions back down here.
Exactly,
Science classrooms.
exactly.
Right.
I know exactly where it is now. Thank you so much. I was just confused about where we were standing. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, other questions for Dr. Tibbs? Dr. Jones?
I just wanted to, I'd sent the board some information last week about something that we need to consider, and that is the potential renaming of that complex. Since it's no longer a school, still says Pocahontas Middle School on the marquee, and people refer to it as the old middle school now, so probably need to think about a new name, and I sent you some examples. I think what we have heard from the community is that it's important that Pocahontas stays in the name, but maybe it's Pocahontas Historical Building, Administrative Building, Landmark Building, or there may be other names out there, but those are some names that staff have thrown around as possibilities, and it's something that we need to think about as we move forward.
All right, discussion regarding that topic?
Well, I'm just glad you've thought about that, and I do like a new name other than Old Middle School. Pocahontas, I don't know, Office Complex, Pocahontas Administration, Pocahontas School Board Administration.
But there are other things, and that was the only issue I had
Yeah.
with administration, because
Right.
they're gonna be like the Christmas Mother. There are other things that are in there, and the historical museum part of it. So those aren't really
Oh, that's a good
administrative.
point. Yeah, that's a good
Right.
So I was
point.
thinking historical or landmark or something, because it's got the plaque out front, the
Right.
historical marker out
mhm.
front.
Well, Mrs. Ayers, I agree with you, but I definitely think that it needs to be something that the community understands what it is. When they look at the name of the building, they know this is where I go for this purpose.
That's true.
That's the only pieces, I don't want
That's
that to
right.
get lost in the discussion as well.
That's true.
But I definitely agree that Pocahontas needs to be part of the
Yeah,
name.
I agree.
So could be a complex
Yep.
issue by itself.
Yeah, it could be, and that's why, we kind of came up with historical and landmark, because it is a landmark. It has the roadside historical marker on it, and there is history there, so that's why we came up with that. But we will, we'll bat around some other ideas and some names, because I do think it's important that people know where to go.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
it does house, Parks and Rec and Christmas Mother and
School board
us as well,
offices and
school
other
board
things,
offices and
yeah.
others. So it is a complex, and it is a building that's serving multiple purposes, so we
Right.
want to try and capture that as well.
Mr. Cole, did you have a comment, sir?
Pocahontas Building, Pocahontas Community Building.
Actually, I liked Pocahontas building as well,
Yeah,
so.
do something simple, and you can
would be
put the
simple.
signs up and
Yeah.
go.
Okay.
You know, there are greater minds than mine on this, so
agree.
certainly, I think it's something worth considering. I don't think we have to hurry into this, but by the time you guys move in, maybe we'll have something.
Sounds great.
I agree.
One thing I did want to point out with this Pocahontas theme, if you recognize looking at the front of the building straight above the front steps, it says Pocahontas School. When we were doing the work to do the drawings and the plans for the roof, the back side of that on the roof, where it comes up, had deteriorated greatly. And so one of the things that we did is we did contract out to get that preserved. And so
Good.
the back side has been preserved so that now the roof has something to connect to, because it had deteriorated such that the roof didn't have anything to connect to. And then what they also did is they cleaned that entire front and also cleaned the concrete on the side and put some caulking in there and made it so that it does look nice and it's also preserved.
Mhm.
Okay.
Attention to detail,
So
thank you.
further discussion regarding the naming component. Is there anything else we need to talk about at this time regarding that?
I don't think so.
I think there's consensus, though. I see everybody sort of supporting the idea of Pocahontas being a part of that. Okay, all right.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tibbs.
Thank you.
Yes. Next topic that we have is a presentation on the board. This is a presentation after looking at our climate survey data and also getting some feedback from some staff and parents. We wanted to present to the board kind of a holistic look at what we do when it comes to student behavior management, some changes that have been made over the last several years, not just in Powhatan, but throughout the state and even nationwide when it comes to student behavior and response to that. So Dr. Alejandro, and I know Ms. Wojcicki worked with her on this presentation to kind of pull together and share with the board and the community kind of where we are, share some data about what we're currently seeing in our buildings, and also kind of next steps of where we go from here. So Dr. Alejandro?
Great, thank you. All right, so I'm going to start with a little bit about how we have used research-based practices over the course of the last decade plus. And this is the most recent example from the DOE about the approach to student behavior management. So approaching school discipline from an instructional prevention-based standpoint contributes to a positive school environment and ensures equity, fairness, and continuous improvement. And I thought this quote really captures our overview of what is going on with behavior management within our school buildings right now, starting with the fact that our goal is to prevent negative student behaviors, but that we also incorporate instruction into how we work with students to manage their behavior, and also making sure that we are focused on equity, fairness, and continuous improvement. So I felt like this quote that just was released in January of this year really encapsulated where we are as a division. This next slide shows a little bit about the progression of student behavior management, as I said, over the last decade plus. So back in 2008, new to the scene was a program called Response to Intervention, and it took a look at 3 tiers of activities that could be done, whether it was with behavior management or the way that we provided instruction. That has morphed into what we now call VTSS, our Virginia Tiered Systems of Supports for behavior, for academics, and other items within the school division. From there, in 2010, we began to implement elementary data meetings where we looked at the elementary level at a variety of data points to see where students were with academics and behavior. In 2012, as I mentioned, we moved to VTSS. In 2013, we implemented safety care training across the division, and that's where we used research-based practices for dealing with students for physical needs as we were implementing possible need for restraint or for redirection of student behaviors. 2014, we had our administrators attend Classroom Not Courtrooms initiative workshops and seminars. We also instituted the DCJS threat assessment trainings, and we use those currently today. In 2015, you'll remember we had a speaker, Adolph Brown, come and talk a little bit more about equity. We expanded VTSS to the 7th and 8th grade in the green team. And then over the course of the last 4 years, you can see between 2016 and 2019, that just has continued to move forward with attendance initiatives, VTSS at the high school, In 18, we redid our code of conduct and made it a student rights and responsibilities rather than a code of conduct to come in line with some of these beliefs and philosophies about student management. And ongoing, we continue to revise our code of conduct and our policies. We continue to use that climate survey that has expanded this year, and we've got mindfulness practices. So you can see the progression over the course of this last decade. The next section is going to discuss a little bit about what's going on data-wise at the division and at the school level. And we analyze data all the time. At the division level, we meet quarterly with principals and our instructional specialists to discuss attendance, behavior, and academics at a student level. But each school presents their individual data. The school administrations, they analyze their data by location within the building. Are things happening in the cafeterias? Are they happening in the library? Are they happening in the hallways? Are they happening at recess? Are they happening on the buses? They look at days of the week. Do we see more discipline on Mondays than we do on Tuesdays, more on Fridays than we do on Wednesdays? They look at it by teacher, they look at it by grade level, and then they look at it by demographic group, including gender, race, ethnicity, those things. Special education, low socioeconomic status, all of those things. And then at the faculty level, we present that data to our faculty, whether it be at data meetings at the elementary level, at faculty meetings, department meetings, grade level meetings, and then there are PBIS committee meetings. So a variety of ways that we share the data out and analyze the data within schools. The next slide talks a little bit about what came out of the survey results for the division, and this is really just an overview for you to see the range of responses that we had about discipline depending on schools. And you all have seen this data specific by school, so you can look at this individually, but this shows, based on certain discipline items, what the range of was from the lowest school response to the highest school response. So for example, at the end of the student survey, I know how to decide right from wrong. Amazingly enough, 90 to 95% of our kids in every single school say they know how to decide right from wrong. On the other hand, if you look at the second to the last one from the teacher survey, it says students know there are consequences for breaking school rules, and they say that response is anywhere from 36% to 78%. So these are data points that then allow us to say what's going on and how we can improve in our individual schools, and the schools are looking at each of these items. Some other data that reflects how we are seeing positive impacts from discipline is the fact that we are seeing more students graduate and fewer students dropping out. And you can see over time from 14 to 18 that in 14 we had 4% of our students that were dropping out, and in 2018 1.78%. We cut that in half, more than in half. And our graduation completion index went from a 93.5% rate to a 96.9% rate. And remember, those include our GED records. So we are getting more students not only to get a high school diploma, but those students who may have been dropping out and not getting a GED, we're getting those students something that they can use outside of or post-secondary as well. Another data point that I wanted to share with you is that a lot of times people may discuss the fact that as we have shifted our behavior management system, that we aren't providing the same types of consequences. And you can see in this item that in-school suspensions varied from year to year. We don't have data at the state level from 15 and 16 before, so that's why that is blank. Short-term suspensions have stayed fairly consistent over these past few years. Long-term suspensions have fluctuated a little bit, and then expulsions have fluctuated, or have decreased significantly, rather, over this same time frame. So what does this do for our school climate? And this quote is one of my favorites from Teddy Roosevelt, and because it talks about the fact that some of this is really hard work, but it's important work, and it's work worth doing. So some of the hard times is to hear some of the talk that we get from the real talk that we get from the schools, and that's what this next slide is about. So first of all, we certainly have to know that as we have moved from traditional behavior to some of this more instruction-based discipline model, that there's a mindset shift, that we've had to see that some teachers and administrators, counselors, everyone in the building has had to change their philosophy and adapt their philosophy to understand this process a little bit differently. There still are some misconceptions out there that we hear that because we're doing positive behavior interventions that we can't discipline students. That's not the case, as you saw on a slide about discipline and in-school suspensions and out-of-school suspensions. And that they sometimes believe falsely that instruction-based discipline allows kids to get away with things. It's just a different way of framing student behavior so that they understand why they are making the decisions that they are making so that they don't make those decisions again. Some of the challenges that we've seen in this time frame have been specifically at the middle school, and there's one error on this section. There have been 3 principals there in 4 years, not 4 principals in 4 years, though sometimes I feel like sometimes we did have a little bit of transition there. But 3 principals in 4 years. They've had 3 buildings in 4 years. And we've had to merge a middle school staff with a junior high staff, which the staff members have been great about merging. However, the middle school that we had was a 5-6 group of teachers that had a little bit more of an elementary focus, with the junior high staff that were 7-8 that had more of a transition to high school focus. So there's just been a little bit of the need to make sure that they all are on the same page with things. The beliefs down in the bottom left-hand corner, I think this is probably one of the strongest statements on this page, is that our people, our teachers, our staff, our community believe that ours is a community and that we are a community with kindness. And I truly believe that if you ask our teachers, that they believe in the kindness of our students and the importance of kindness with our students. Also, though, we've realized that we have to refine some of our practices. What are some of the things that are classroom-managed behaviors versus office-managed behaviors? And so that's a little bit of a shift that's happened in the same time frame. But we've seen the results, as I mentioned before, that graduation rates are up, that our GED completion rate is up, and that our dropout rate is down. So where do we go from here? Dr. Massa and Ms. Wojcicki spoke recently at a VDOE Classrooms Not Courtrooms conference, and in their presentation, Dr. Massa said the bottom line is that we are teachers, meaning all of us, and that we're going to teach our way out of it. And the important thing is that we are teaching our students how to behave, that's one of the things that is an important component of what we do, and that is the focus of the strategies that we are putting in place. So what are some of those strategies? We've got a program called Second Step. It's a Tier 1 school-wide curriculum that talks to students about goal-setting, decision-making, and handling difficult emotions that they may be having. That's happening at the middle school for all students, and it's happening at the elementary school with their school counselors. The middle school just implemented this year an opportunity for Reset and Reflect, where students with immediate discipline needs are brought to a place where they can reflect on their behavior. They contact their parent, they work with a school counselor or an administrator, and then they are able to return to the classroom after they reset their behavior. Skills Streaming is a Tier 3 or a more advanced program that has direct instruction for students and creates strategies for them on how to redirect their behavior. And then other supports that we have, we've got a structured day program within the middle school that's moving to the high school. We have small groups in school counseling. Check-in, check-out, that's largely at the elementary school, and we have mentoring programs at all 3 levels. So next steps, even with all of these things that we have in place, we have to recognize that there still are things that we need to work on. So we will continue to provide additional classroom management strategies for teachers to redirect behaviors. That is a component of our Empower conference this summer. There are activities that will be on classroom management strategies. It's also part of our ABCs for PCPS when we initiate new teachers into our division. We've got a new position that's coming to alleviate some of the lead teachers' time so that they can provide behavioral support within the building. We know that we need to continue to communicate the positive things that are going on with our staff and community. Also, though, to communicate what the students' expectations are and what their behaviors are. We will continue to focus on building relationships with our students, and that work started when we were talking with Adolph Brown several years ago about the importance of building relationships and understanding students. And then we've got to balance student accountability with student education. So we still have to hold students accountable for their behavior, but also knowing that this instruction and educating them will serve them better in the long run.
All right, questions for Dr. Alejandro from the board? Questions? Mr. Kunkel?
Yes, sir.
Well, I appreciate everybody's efforts on this, and I know we have some challenges. I just wanted to echo some of the things I've heard. Had an opportunity to talk to a lot of constituents over the spring, and I would say by far the biggest thing I heard was praise for the school system. People in my district are happy with the schools. But when there was a complaint, the complaints seemed to center around conduct at the middle school. Middle school's out of control, language in the hallways, teachers don't feel supported, there's no consequences for language that's not directed at somebody. And to hear something like that repeatedly, when that's not the responses I was looking for, it concerns me. So I spent some time looking at the student handbook, and I looked at the presentation. I think it's a good thing to see statistics go down, to see dropout rates go down, to see ISS go down. But if behavior is getting worse, then I've got no problem as a board member to see punishment rates go up. I think that there needs to be consequences for bad behavior. I think those consequences need to have a minimum. I've fought this argument before and lost, but I would like to discuss it again in relation to, let's say common decency, the way that the students act toward each other and just in general. It is a public setting, so I'm concerned about the things that I've heard, and I think we've got work to do, primarily at the middle school, in supporting teachers and addressing the language and the demeanor of the students, and I think we can triumph over that, but I don't think we're there yet with what I've been hearing from parents and teachers. That's what I have to say about that.
All right. Dr. Jones, Dr. Alejandro?
Yeah, I would just point out that actually ISS and short-term out-of-school suspension rates have gone up, not down, over the last 3 years. So students are being disciplined when there is behavior, and there's a wide range of disciplines and redirection. And I understand that perception is out there, but it doesn't match reality in some cases, and so we need to figure out how we're going to fight that perception. And that's something that we know that we need to work on, and we need to figure out a way to get the word out about what really is happening in the classrooms and in the hallways. I'm in the hallways at the middle school often, and I know Dr. Alejandro is, as well as the administrators. I don't hear the language that you're referencing, so I don't know where it's coming from, but it's certainly something that we need to address, because in many cases perception is reality, and we need to make sure that we are combating that perception of what's happening at the middle school.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, questions, comments? Mrs. Emel?
I'd like to start with the challenges on slide 12.
Sure.
No doubt that there's been challenges, especially with the middle school. Having 2 locations, many administrators, and merging staff. That I'm glad you put that out there, because that's very true. I mean, it's just going to happen. But now that we know that, I think we need to move forward. I'd like to see us acknowledge and deal with, as a #1 priority, bullying. I get a lot of calls, or stopped in the grocery store or on the soccer field or out and about. What I get is people are saying that the bullying is not being taken care of. And then when I ask them if they have talked to the teacher or the administrator, most times they have not. And I said, well, how can we do something about this if we don't know? I said, you really need to find the teacher, talk to the teacher or the administrator, so that something can be done. So I think that's a big part of it. But then they say, well, I think that will make it worse if I come forward and say something. And to which I say, again, nothing can be done if you don't do something. So that is the biggest thing that I see out there. Also, I was glad to see the new position, and I was wondering if that position could be somehow involved with the bullying. Like, I know we don't want to put things in student records, but I mean like maybe a separate file, a separate notebook, somebody that is in charge of just the bullying to oversee, you know, because they've got a lot of stuff to do as administrators, but maybe say, okay, you know, such and such told me that this is happening, and, you know, mark it down so that they have it in black and white, so that when there is a problem with bullying, they can just open the notebook or the file and say, okay, yeah, that happened, that this is what we're doing, that kind of thing, if that would help. Because I just, we need our community and our staff to know that we're behind, well, especially our staff, that we're behind them. And the community needs to know that they need to speak up. And if you think it's bad in middle school, it's only going to get worse in high school if you don't tell somebody about it. And that did happen in one of the cases that I dealt with this year. So I appreciate the great next steps. In fact, let me start from the beginning. I appreciate the plan. I know we have a very good plan in place. But from what I've heard, I would say bullying is the #1 priority that needs to be acknowledged and dealt with. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Jones.
Thank you, sir. I will add this, and I don't know if a lot of people in the community realize this. We have a legal obligation by Virginia Code to investigate any complaint of bullying. And so anytime bullying is brought to the administration's attention, they investigate it. They document that investigation and contact parents and do a full investigation and work to ameliorate any of the bullying that occurs. So you've hit on what is probably the single most frustrating thing that that I deal with on a daily basis, is hearing these perceptions about bullying. And then have you said anything to anybody? No. Dr. Martin and I met with 2 young ladies yesterday who have brought some complaints forward, and we met with them and talked to them and congratulated them and thanked them for bringing their concerns forward so that we could investigate it, and we encouraged them to tell their friends to do the same. Because we can't address it if, 1, we don't hear it, and 2, we don't know about it. And we want to make sure that every child feels safe and welcome at school, and that they're not subjected to step in and provide assistance, and that's what we're here for to do. So we certainly encourage people to do that. We are going to talk this summer administratively about other ways to report bullying, and is there an easier way for it to do it that would encourage more people to do it without fear of retribution or whatever the fear is, which I don't really understand in many cases. So we'll continue to fight to figure out how to get this issue to the forefront, because it is a concern, but we do need the community's help in communicating with us.
I agree.
All right. Other questions or comments?
I do have a question.
Mrs. Ayers.
Is there, would it be a possibility to do some type of PR campaign with the students, like for over the year, about reporting and about encouraging them and the parents to come forward? And I mean, I understand it. I mean, looking at it from especially a middle schooler's perspective, it would be a terrifying thing to go forward and tell somebody that somebody's bullying you, because then, like you said, there is going to be an investigation. So you know you're going to investigate the bully that bullied them. And if he's a bully or she's a bully, what is the it's scary. I mean, anyway, I understand the fear, but I think we need to try to do something. And I know we are. I'm not saying we are not. But I just think maybe some type of, ramped up campaign to tell kids that it's okay and we need to know.
I know that there are several student organizations within the middle school that have done smaller projects. I know that there was a video probably 3 weeks ago that a group of students did about things that were happening in the hallways, interacting with each other, and about how they should appropriately interact with each other. And so student organizations are willing to do that. They've got great technology over there, so we can talk a little bit more about that. I also would commend the staff at the middle school. I know, again, we're up against perceptions, and I understand the perceptions are out there, but the administrative team has been very responsive when staff has come with concerns about things, and has been responsive to them as well, and listens to their concerns and tries to involve them in the process as well, which I think helps the overall climate of the school if the staff understands better what's going on and how they can approach the behavior management better. So I do have to commend the administrative staff for listening to the staff and their concerns.
Well, that was, and it's not necessarily bullying, but it's that, the one that says, I feel safe at school. I mean, I thought at first, well, 88's pretty good. And then I thought, but how would it be to be that child, one of the percent that doesn't feel safe? How does that feel to go to school every day and be afraid or not? What is that experience? It must really alter their ability to thrive. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ayers. So, I think I'd like to build a little bit upon your comments, and I don't want to simply repeat what everybody else has said. But if we could go to slide 7 for just a minute. What concerns me with slide 7 in reviewing this before our meeting today is simply the fact that there's such a variance in responses, in the affirmative response. For example, and it speaks directly to what Ms. Ayers was just addressing, the question on the student survey, did you tell a teacher or another adult at school what happened? At one of our schools, if I'm reading this correctly, the response rate is 100%, right? So at another one of our schools, the response rate is 59%. So, and I'm sure you're trying to think of the same answer that I am. What's the difference? Why is one school at 100%? Why is another one at 59%? And as I go through this, another one that particularly concerns me is, and this is in the teacher survey, there's a couple in there that concern me, but one of them is students know that there are consequences for breaking school rules. So we have 78% at one of our schools that answers that question in the affirmative, and then at another school, we only have 36% of our students that answer that question in the affirmative. So the reverse of that, I suppose, is that 64% of the respondents answered that question no. So better than half of our staff at that particular school would say that students do not know that there are consequences for breaking school rules. So how do we take that message from the schools, or whatever is happening in a positive way where it's 78%, and carry it over to the 36%? Ideally, we'd like to be 100% on all of these, and really, at least on the samples that we have here, we get there for students are acknowledged for positive behavior. So we're there on that on the student survey. The staff at the best and the worst, the only difference is 198%. Almost everybody answers that question yes, that students are acknowledged for positive behavior. But when we get to the opposite side of that, where there's consequences for inappropriate behavior, we're down as low as 36% at one of our schools in response to that. And then we have similar sorts of variances elsewhere. I guess, and I don't know that this is a question for you as much as it's a request, that I really would like, or would hope that you would take a look at those, and if there are lessons to be learned from the best, let's apply them at the, I hate to say the worst, but the ones with the lowest responses, because to me 36% is, that's pretty low to say that only 36% of the staff, even if you begin to discuss whether some of the staff have bought into the newer approaches to things, that is saying that 64% of the staff don't believe that there's consequences. And I guess I would echo this as well, that I have heard the same sorts of concerns expressed over the past couple months, and in looking at this, it really is striking the difference, the variance between one of our schools, the school with the highest number in that category, and the school with the lowest number. So.
And that's why the data is in here for us to have, for you all to see, so that you know we are having those discussions. So we met with every single principal after they did an internal review of their surveys, and then we compared across the division. Remembering also, though, that this was a snapshot. This was a one-time survey. It's the first time that we've done this survey. There were some questions about the way things were worded and what the implications were of does a student know the consequence versus did a student receive a consequence? You know, those are kinds of, you know, semantics that we want to make sure people are answering what they're being asked. But that being said, are there lessons to be learned from them? Absolutely. And when we were having those conversations with principals and their administrative teams, those are the things that they're reflecting on. And we're sharing strategies from other schools as well. So to your point, yes.
All right, and just to follow up on what you just said, I believe I know the answer to this, but I want to make sure. So the intention is that in future years, as we continue, we're going to continue to provide this same survey so we can look at trend data and see how we're doing in these categories, where we're improving, where we're not, and really what the culture of the school and the
Correct.
system looks like over time, so that we can make this better every single year, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And
Dr. Jones.
Yeah, thank you. And the one piece that's missing is parents here. So what we're currently looking for is a parent survey. The state has provided us with students and staff that we'll be doing, we think, biannually, which will be good because it'll give us time to put some measures in place to hopefully see better results. But what we don't have is parents, which are, I think, are some of what board members hear from and I hear from. So we're hopeful to go out and locate a parent survey and do that next year, so we have that baseline data as well.
Right, and I would agree with that. Just as an individual board member, I mean, as you've talked about perceptions and other things, you know, that's a very valid thing. And if you have data that we can provide back and share with the public and make available to them to address some of these issues, I mean, I think that there's a real value in that, and particularly as an individual board member, I'd like to have that available to share with them and really point them towards to study, review, and learn more about the issue that they're concerned about. So anything we can do in that regard, I think, is a positive.
Sounds great.
Mr. Kunkel, did you have a question or
Just
statement, sir?
On that page
Yes,
7
sir.
there, and you look at the teacher survey, good example, students are acknowledged for positive behavior. 100% is your best response, and 98% is your worst response, and that's by school, correct? But if you look at the last question, this school's administrators support teachers' efforts to maintain, and the rest of that, as I imagine, is discipline. 84% is a high to 58% is a low. I mean, those numbers to me should be 98 and 95%. And until they're there, there's something not happening between staff and administration. You know, so I don't think that's a good statistic at all. Even the good one at 84%, I would say, shoot for that to be your worst case. That's all I have on that one.
May I?
If I could,
Go.
Mrs. Cole, I believe you were first, sir.
Just a couple comments here. If I had surveyed my children in my home on a given day, I'm betting that I would get similar results on some of these questions, that they didn't think I was consistently enforcing the rules occasionally, or that they didn't think somebody was being supportive. Discipline is hard work, and by the very fact that we are taking a hard look at this, and not only just a hard look at it, we're taking at it a critical look at it in terms of looking at data and looking at best practices, I think says a lot about our school system and our staff. To move the dropout rate from 4% to less than 2% is hard work. And part of that is this intervention that we're doing on a regular basis with students when they misbehave. They're getting attention from adults in the building on a regular basis. Is it changing behavior in overnight? No. You know, and we can't change behavior overnight. I think Dr. Mass's comment about teaching students better ways to respond is the answer. But that does not occur in a short period of time. Sometimes it doesn't occur for several years. Sometimes it doesn't occur for dozens of years. But you've got to keep trying, and you've got to keep working at it. So obviously we've got some things here on these surveys that are telling us here's some areas we need to look at. But I don't want to lose sight of the fact that there are a lot of really good things going on in our building, and a lot of really good things going on what we're trying to do. And I think it is very important that when parents have a concern that they talk directly to the teacher first, and then talk to the principal if they have a concern about that. That's the only way we know, and that's the only and that's the only way we can. If we're not alerted to it, like Ms. Emo said, we can't change it. And so I'm not shirking or saying that we don't have some things we need to work on, but I don't want to leave here saying, you know, with the impression that we're not doing some really good things and we're not working really, really hard at this, as every school division in the Commonwealth and the nation is doing. And the last thing I would say is that I will take these numbers and compare them to most any school across the state or across the nation, and I think we're going to stand pretty well with where we are. So I'm not celebrating that we've reached the finish line and everything is wonderful. Right. But what I am saying is that we've got good students by and large in our buildings. Do they need to be corrected occasionally? Absolutely, they need to be corrected occasionally. You know, and as you move from a model that says, okay, you misbehaved, so we're going to send you off to X number of days to detention where you see an immediate, there's a consequence, and you move into a model where there's a more gradual approach to changing behavior, there's always going to be people that think I'm not being supported. And that, you know, so that support thing goes both ways. And I think that that's really important for people to understand is that, you know, when you're building a culture in a school division, in a school where students feel respected and teachers feel respected and supported, that's a two-way street among everybody in that building. So I appreciate where we are. I agree with my other board members that we've got some things to do, and since there are some statistics on there that trouble not only us, I'm sure they trouble the administrators and the teachers in those buildings, much more so than us because they're living with those students every day. So, you know, that's just my comment on that. You know, I'm really appreciative of this data, and I applaud the efforts that we've done to this point.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cole. Mrs. Emel.
Something Mr. Conca said about the numbers. Are we penalized? Are we, when we report negative stuff, are the teachers or the administrators, you know, is that goes to the state?
No, this
Dr.
is,
Jones.
I'm sorry, thank you. No, this is data just for our use. And so we look at it as an opportunity for growth and an opportunity for improvement. So there's no repercussions or it's just us wanting to get better. So we just use it as a way to grow and continue to develop and get better. We can compare ourselves, and we have data comparing ourselves to Region 1 and at the state level, and our data is as good or at better than what we see at the region and the state level. So we're not alone in some of these challenges, but it doesn't mean that we don't want to work at them and continue to get better and to continue to grow. So that's what we're about as an organization, and that's what our focus is always on.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because I, as one board member, would not want the administration of our schools to feel like that they can't do what they have to do to get behavior to change and to be positive, because that's what we want. And if it's going to take a little bit more with the higher end, with the numbers going up for a while, well, then I guess it will, because I think the people in this county, it's a small county, so it's like people expect almost like a private school atmosphere, a private school behavior, you know, that we are better, we can do better. They expect their children to do better. And so, like I said, I feel like we've got a great plan underneath, and we've got great next steps. I would just really like to see us back our schools, our administration, and I think it's educating our parents and students and letting them know that we need their help in doing this. Thank you.
I would just say that there's two categories on this survey, climate survey data, that to me I would really like to see be at 100 across the board, and that's the student survey responses to I feel safe at school, and the staff the same thing. Teacher survey, I feel safe at school, and you know, our high for the students is 88, our lowest school is 72. For the teachers, it's 94 and 90, which that's really good. At 94 and 90, I would like to see them be 100, because I really want everybody that's in that school building to feel like they're safe every single day, because I don't think we can have an effective learning environment, a good place to work, and those sorts of things if that number is not there. So, and whatever we need to do in regards to sort of make that happen, you know, I think we do that in a measured way. So, any other questions or comments? I'd like to thank you for bringing forward the data. I mean, this is something that I think we've had a lot of discussion about. I've had a lot of questions about. I wanted to understand it better, and I think this helps me to better respond to some questions. So thank you for that. Any other comments from board members or questions?
I agree, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Almondra. Next item on our agenda is closed session. Mrs. Emel, could I ask you to read the certification for us and make a motion regarding that?
Yes. I recommend and make a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to Code 2.2-3711A1 to discuss the employment, resignation, and leave of specific employees, pursuant to Code 2.2-3711A2 and A4 to discuss the expulsion and school placement of specific students, and pursuant to Codes 22.1-60 and 22.1-60.1 to discuss the evaluation and contract of the division superintendent, Codes 2.2-3711, A1, A2, A4, 22.1-60 and 22.1-60.1.
All right, that is in the form of a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, please respond with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We are in closed session. All right, if I could have your attention for a moment, please. All right. If I could have your attention for just a moment. Mr. Sneed has quieted the entire room down. Well done, Mr. Sneed. All right, so just as a matter of process, where we are right now is we're going to be coming out of closed session from our 5 o'clock workshop. When we conclude our closed session, then we'll be beginning our regular meeting. When we come out of closed session, we'll adjourn from that meeting. We'll take just a few minutes to switch our computers over, and then we'll move into our open session, which is our meeting for the 7 o'clock hour. All right, Ms. Emel.
Whereas the Powhatan County School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act.
I'm sorry, Ms. Emel, we
Oh,
need a
we
motion.
need a motion.
I'm sorry, I
Come out.
forgot to say. I would like to make a motion that we are going to convene from the closed meeting, thank you,
All right,
on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote.
hold on one second, Ms. Emel.
We just need a motion to
You were
come
right.
out
We
of
just need a
closed
motion to
session.
come out
Oh,
of
we
closed session. We
No.
haven't done that.
I make a motion, we come out of closed session.
All right,
Second.
motions are second. Motion is second. All in favor, please respond with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Ms. Emel.
Now we're ready. Thank you. Whereas the Powhatan County School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Powhatan School Board hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies, and only public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Aye.
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 All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn our June 11th, 2019 school board workshop?
So moved.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second?
Motion is second to adjourn the workshop. Please respond with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We are adjourned from the June 11th, 2019 school board workshop.